lines. Lines are all around us. What do lines do? Lines give us direction, and this is the key when you're doing flower arranging. A line in a flower arrangement gives movement and rhythm. We've already covered some of the more ordinary line directions in this edition of Floral Design magazine, which you can just grab if you're not up to date with them. We're talking horizontal lines, vertical, upwards, downwards, circular. But hey, this DVD is going to give you something a little bit different, because we're now going to explore 6 line directions that you don't see very often that are going to give your flower arrangements wow, interest, and are going to look so different from what everybody sees every day. But also we're going to look at some of the other lines that you might have heard about, but perhaps have only seen done in classical English arrangements. Spiral, Japanese concept for ikebana, and I have found the most beautiful piece of spiraling wood. The chances of you finding something like this are probably nil, but you can make one yourself with cane. Thick cane, wet it in a bucket for a couple of days and then twist it around something to get a spiral. Or abandon the spiral idea altogether and use a piece of dowel. A piece of dowel will do exactly the same job of being the support for all the spiraling that's going to go on. I've also got New Zealand flax. You can use any linear material that you can spiral. It's much easier to find in your area. And some Japanese anemones in flower. Once again, any flower, as long as it's got a very long stem. I've picked ones that have got small flowers. I don't want the flowers to dominate, I want the line to dominate. And a tall vase, some old floral foam, and some test tubes. So I will first of all put this into the vase, going right in, so it is bringing the spiral right from the bottom and up. The vase becomes just a support for this beautiful, beautiful spiral. Now inside there, it's not going to be stable at all, and this is where your old floral foam comes in. Push it down in until you've got a really, really stable stick. Floral foam is a no-no at the moment in most parts of the world because it does not decompose, so it doesn't help our planet at all. So these sort of projects are really good ways of getting rid of it. If you're using dowel, just foam, old foam the same way, put it into your container and then push the dowel in. There it is, you can see it's fairly stable now, and I've got it so it's not just going to hit the surface there, it's just raised a little bit. I have here what is now called Oasis Fix, but it came from an old lady, so it's got to be 50 years old, and in her day it was called Floral Stick. Either way, it's a very, very sticky substance, very much like blue tack. You could use instead cold glue, which of course is the modern equivalent. Put test tubes, old test tubes, into here to provide a water source for the plant material I'm going to put in. Try not to use floral foam at all if I can help it, and that's why I'm using this as an example for you, so you can see how we can do flower arranging without it. If you didn't have floral foam at all, you could use newspaper to stuff your vase. I think I probably need 3 of them, and I'm pushing it right down in. I want them below the level of the vase. I don't want you to see them. So now we can fill those up with water. If you've got flower food, soluble flower food, put it in the water It will make your flowers last longer. Flower tubes, you can see, have been used many, many times, and this is what's so wonderful about them. They are recyclable. This planet of ours needs all the help it can get. Alright, and we're ready now to accentuate the line. That means if we're going to have a spiral line, we want the other plant material to make it more powerful, would be the word, and that's why I've picked the flax. Now, will the flax spiral? When it's in this form, no it won't, because it's too wide. So I'm going to split it up the middle, cut the end off. The flax colour I picked was to tone in with the vase and the wood. So I have 2 of these blades, which will become 4 of course when I've split them. In it goes. If you do have a spiral piece, notice the way nature spirals and go the same way. So I'm spiralling up, spiralling it up, popping it through one of these holes. If you've got dowel, you could actually staple it to the dowel, or once again you can use that cold glue. And I'm going to do it again. Flax goes into the water, spiralling, spiralling. Let's get it down. I'm wanting to keep that spiral fairly natural and open. Allow for lots of air space through there. So if you're using dowel, just put it round and round the dowel and keep it really, really open. Now some of this little fixative onto the top here, looking at the front of it here. See, now I have got the other piece of flax, exactly the same colour. Split it down and add 2 small spirals. Because this is inspired from the east, I'm keeping it pretty simple because I'm sort of true to its origins really. So at this point, as long as you just keep spiraling your plant material, you will have that spiraling line direction. You just don't see it, do you? When have you last seen one that was spiraling like this? Little bit of fix there to hold that one in place. New Zealand flax doesn't last very well out of water. I would love to have one coming down from here and going up, but it won't work unless I put a flower tube down the bottom here and hide it at the back. I'll show you how to do that. It's a really clever trick. This is an ordinary flower tube that has been covered with wood ash. Look how close it is to wood. I put PVA, wood carpenter's glue, all over it, and then I took some ash out of our fireplace that burns wood and I rolled the tube in it. Let it dry, and that's the result. You can hide this in any design at all where it has got a woody base, and I'm going to hide it by putting it around the back here. And the hot glue is on this branch here and on the test tube, so that will glue that firmly in place, and of course you can't see that hot glue. So now we have 2 more of these beautiful New Zealand flax. This time I've got them a slightly yellower colour from a different bush. Do we have bushes, flax bushes? Yep. But still need to flick it out. And all this is just to emphasise spiralling lines. So have fun with your piece of dowel and just swirl it round and round and round and as high up as you want to get it. Open it up here so you've got these lovely enclosed spaces, so it reaches right up high. You don't want it long and thin. You really want to have it dynamic, and at the top there, just cutting off that little piece there, at the top, so it's now spiraling it out into the atmosphere. So that's the thing, keep swirling, swirling all the way up and out. I really am just making this up as I go along, just to get the effect that we want. And that one I'm going to leave like that, so it's spiralling out in that direction. Tension, movement, rhythm. It's not a peaceful line direction, a spiral lining. It is all about swirling and emotion and all of those things that we happen inside ourselves when we're having a bad day. Alright, so we've spiraled. I've got 2 more pieces to do. I don't want to hide too much of this beautiful piece of vine. If you can find a really, really old ivy vine, you'll probably find things like this. And there it is, a spiral direction. But because we're being true as we can to the east, when the Ikebana people have lines going everywhere, they like to have areas of rest. They call it mass. So for areas of rest, this is why we have got the Japanese anemone. And I'm going to pop one down here. Just slip it in. So they float about the spiral. The longest one I could find, leaving all of the leaves on it. And that pops in the back. The leaves add contrast. And that's going straight down in and coming up through the top. These leaves also cover those tubes. And there it is, a spiral line inspired by the east that will give your flower arranging a completely different look from the more traditional line directions. Direction isn't a line direction, it's 2 line directions, and it can be called crossover design if you're in the west and overlapping design if you're in the east. But whatever it does the same thing, which means your directions go opposite each other like this. It creates an awful lot of tension because your eye doesn't know which way to look. So you have to make sure that when you do this, all of the edges are lovely and clean, it's not messy, it hasn't got tizzy plant material, because you want them to appreciate that they're going to look this way, then they're going to look that way. To achieve it, I have got wet floral foam in a tin. You can go as long as you want with this one. It's fantastic for a table centre and a long dining table because you just keep on adding. I've also got Elegia. First thing I'm going to do is cover this floral foam. There's water in the bottom of there as well. Cut off each of the pieces of Elegia. Pop them in. You could use moss. What do you think about it really? Lichen, anything at all. The whole aim of this is simply to cover the base in a way that's not going to detract from the line. But see how quickly that covers the floral foam. Shrek, maybe it looks as if it's coming out of Shrek. Now, if I left it like that, it would completely detract from the design, so I am going to give it rather a fierce haircut. I've never been a hairdresser, so perhaps it's going to be a crew cut. But see how it just gives us this lovely texture at the base without it overcoming what will be this lovely crossover line. Make it as short as you want. Fabulous stuff, Equilegia. So versatile. So there, would you employ me as your hairdresser? Don't think so. Right, now that's made a mess completely over everything, but it has brought it back to a really nice texture. I probably could even go lower than that. And all it took was one piece of Equilegia and very little time at all. Everything that I'm going to do with the blades is going to be slanting in that direction. It doesn't matter where I place them, as long as they are on a slant going this way. So with the plant material you use, just experiment. When it gets to the bend point, that's where you want to make sure you've cut it from that point. They really do have to slant. Alright, so you can see it's really quite unbalanced at the moment because everything's sliding off in that direction, and this is when the magic happens. It puts it in balance, because now you're going to take your lovely flowers and put them in the other way. The longer you cross over, the more spectacular the style is going to be, this line direction is going to be. So if you had 3 or 4 of these lined up together and all of these blades of the Iris japonica were all coming out here, you're going to have a lot more crossing in this direction or two. But this is just to give you an idea of it. Now I've picked zinnias because zinnias have got really straight, strong stems on them. Gerbers are the same. Also, if you can get long stemmed roses or chrysanthemums, something with a straight long stem on them. I don't want those bottom leaves, but the top ones will add another contrast. And now I'm going to pop them in the other way on the other angle. So through and into the foam. And do this at varying heights right the way through to this, so it's adding a balance. At the moment it's all spreading this way, but it'll be adding a balance the other way. I've picked the zinnias in all the different colours just to give interest. Zinnias do prefer, they last much longer in water rather than floral foam, so that's why there's so much water at the bottom of this container, so that floral foam is continually being kept wet. Shorter ones here. Fabulous array of colours, aren't they? These are an old-fashioned flower, but they do deserve more of our attention, I'm sure. I guess it's finding growers if you don't have the space to plant a packet of seeds yourself. Crossover creates tension, creates amazing tension, but people do stop and look. Yeah, so you can stop there, or you can keep on spreading it in this direction, but that's giving you an idea of this fabulous double line. And the last one, because I can remove his icky leaves here, out here. Here it is, a small example of something that could be as long as you want, as extraordinary as you want it. Using an array of flowers, overlapping or crossover, depending on what side of the world you live in. The line direction is called bent. Yep, bent. Strange, and it once again comes from the east. And bent means in every direction. And the closest example I could find for that is Muhlenbeck. Have a look. This is how it grows, and everything is bent in a different direction. So it is the perfect model to try out this very, very rare line direction. If you can find Muehlenbeckia, use it, because it is a superb, textural, wonderful plant, and of course it never ever dies. Because we need to use the other design elements and principles as well to make a design work, we have to have some form of unity. So I have chosen a very big brown vase, boat shaped, shiny. The reason I like the shiny because it is a fantastic contrast to the Muehlenbeckia, which is so dull and craggy. No floral foam in this one, just 3 pieces of Muehlenbeckia scrunched to fit in like that. As easy as easy. And it does might look like my hair on a bad hair day, but that is bent. The line directions are going everywhere. There is no way your eye can look at something and not go, bzz, where do I look? So our job as floral designers is to give you places to look, but still keeping that bent line direction. First thing to do is add some water. No floral foam. The Muehlenbeckia does not need water, but the other things will. I've selected Equisetum because Equisetum is easy to bend. It lasts whether it's in water or out, even though it is going to be in water, and I can replicate these bendy shapes with it. To hold the shapes in place, I'm using pins, ordinary sewing pins, but there is something special about them. They are mirroring the colour of the beautiful, beautiful dahlia I'm going to use. This is how we're getting unity. This might be an unusual line direction, but we have unity between the dahlia and the pins, the Muehlenbeckia and the vase, and the colour of the Muehlenbeckia of the vase, of course, is also in this reed, and that will make it all work. The Muehlenbeckia is also fantastic because it acts to position anything you want exactly where you want it. You can push the reed right down into the water and now bend it. Bend it on these pieces, and remember it's about bend anywhere and push it back in. We have it bent. And just go wild. I purposely picked the Equisetum that had little pieces growing out of it to encourage this whole line direction. Can you call it a line direction when it is a nothing? Bend it, bend it, bend it, push it down in, push it to any places you want and around. Now if you want it to stay in a particular place, use the pin. And here's the reason for the pin having that shape. And slide the pin in, then into the other one, and it will hold it anywhere you want to go. This, in the old days, used to be called an accent. It's something that you look at second. Very hollow means it likes lots and lots of water. If you give it water, it will last for ages. Bend up and down, just bent any direction. This one's flying off it, bend it in any direction. I'm going to do this quite a few times. I've got 2 angles, 3 angles, 4 angles the same there. We don't want that to happen. We don't want any uniformity at all here. So I'm just going to stick that one so it goes straight up. And when you try this, you mightn't have Equisetum, but you might have some other interesting reed that you can use. Just try to keep it really random. So I almost fell in the trap. Those ones are way too even. Muehlenbeckia, fabulous. Let's bend it. You can make designs like this that you're just not used to seeing still look quite beautiful if you remember your other design elements and principles. That's how it looks from my side. So you can see the pink starting to arrive there. And I'll just keep going. I'm just going to keep adding all these green bits straight down into the water. They will last for ages. Quite challenging. You might be finding this very challenging, all of these different directions, because you won't be used to seeing them, and that's the point of this video, is to introduce you to all these possibilities that just people aren't using. And yet they can be so interesting. Look at just the contrast between the Mullumbekkia now and that green all bending. Getting all these interesting, confusing tensions. It's so easy to place these things because of this Mullumbekkia. And there it is, all used up, my green bits of Mullumbekkia. So we've now got a brown misty layer at the base, and then this green layer. So with lines like this, we now need to have the mass. We need to have something now to take our eye to, and that's going to be these beautiful dahlias. Beautiful long one. Just going to cut off the leaves at the base. Dahlias are also happier in water, and thread it down through so it reaches the water. And purposely I'm doing them so you're looking, if you're looking at the front of the one dahlia, you can see the back of another one. We're not placing them in a radial way at all, we're placing them so you're able to enjoy all parts of the flower. Nothing grouped, this isn't European. And check that that one's in water. Now you can add lots more flowers if you think that that's what you want. All cut long, and I've left the old ones, the old buds on them as well, just because they're interesting forms. By turning it, I'm getting to see where I think that there are spaces where another flower would go. But trying to keep it random, trying to keep the flowers all coming downwards rather than splayed out. So there it is, a bent arrangement where there's a real danger that people think that you might be bent. But it is a challenge for you to see if you can take this idea, this style, this Japanese ikebana style, and make it something that's pretty enough and acceptable enough to be used for a Western audience. Bent line direction. Could you get used to it? Run through the lesson again. See if you agree with me that maybe you could. I added 2 large leaves at the front. It just seemed to me to give it less of a tizzy nature, and a week later changed the dahlias to red ones, so it had its life another couple of weeks. The diagonal line. You must have seen it lots of times. It is sort of one of the favourites of English classic design, is that they have a piece of foam on the top of here on the vase, they shoot a piece of plant material up that way, down that way, and then everything extends out from the middle. It's called a radial line. So it's a radial line with a diagonal shape. But a true diagonal line has everything on a diagonal within it. So that's what I'm going to show you. A tall vase and some rickas. What is a ricka? They are the little side branches that come out of most trees. In this case it's our elm tree, and I just went out and cut these all off and took off the leaves. About that many, and I'm going to divide them into 3 bunches, and really random. I don't want them even at any of the ends. So a bunch like that, don't even them up in any way. And then I'm using quite fine wire on purpose. Wire them together. Around once, back to here. Put the next one in. This is tatami wiring. It's not hugely necessary, but it does make this little bundle very secure. Don't have to be in a line, it's just a case of connecting these all up. And I'm going to do this to make 3 separate bundles. Then you come round to where you started from, put it under that start one, and you've got a nice tidy bundle that isn't going to shoot off in any way. And I have purposely left those ends, have those ends as long as you possibly can. So do that 3 times. There are my 3 bundles. Didn't take more than a minute to do them. But what it has achieved is the bundles are all secure, and I have got these lovely end pieces to tie them onto my vase. If these aren't long enough when you're finished, you can also add some more. You simply take another piece. 1, 2, 3, and you've got yourself some longer pieces. If you can find a vase like this with a neck on, it's really easy, because I'm going to tie now this bundle of sticks straight onto the neck, around the neck, twist it, and if you need to, use pliers to really get it tight. Don't cut off those pieces yet. Alright, so there's the first one. And now the second one goes on the back the same way, and this time its pieces of wire go around the front of this one. So you're not only now tying it to the neck, you're also tying it to the other bundle. Then you've got these pieces at the back of here from the other bundle, and you tie those to that one. Alright, and you notice it went on its natural lean where it wanted to go as a diagonal. There's basically everything is balanced in nature, and you just add them. Now what about this third bundle? Well, the third bundle goes over the top to hide that spout. So we've now got this piece here, our pieces, and that gets tied to either the back one or the front one. Then we turn it round and use these 2 pieces here to tie it to that one. So we ended up with a bundle that is completely all tied together and wired. None of those, all those sticks are wired to each other, and all the bundles are wired to each other. If you need pliers to tighten them, just tighten. Alright. And there you have a bundle attached to that. If you want to, you could have some at the back, but you don't really need it. And that is a diagonal line, purposely shooting upwards, purposely shooting downwards, nothing radial about it whatsoever, and it's giving you the swoosh on the side of your container. The more sticks you use, the bigger your bundle's going to be. The longer your sticks you use, the bigger it's going to be. Down here, this is obviously my surface. I'm going to have to trim these ones so that they don't fall, or I can push it all up this way a bit. So just adjust it, add more wire if you want to, and get it really, really strong and secure. Back to my famous flower tubes, glued and covered with wood ash. And this is what we're going to use as our water source for the diagonal design. Hot glue them in, and we're going to put most of them at the bottom of the diagonal so the flowers can shoot upwards with these stems filling all this in. They don't have to be incredibly well hidden, because once again, by popping them in just like this, they do tend to disappear quite easily. It's just now a case of gluing that piece to that piece. If you prefer, you can wire them in, which is a little bit slower, but just as good. Close look at what I've done. You can almost not see those flower tubes. I'll point them out to you, and I have glued and wired just one piece of wire around because the glue didn't seem to be particularly stable and I wanted this to be a really good mechanic. So one piece of wire round 3 times and with the pliers and cut off, and you can see them, they're all down here. They're right down through the last one at the very bottom there, and then coming right back up again to this one here. And if I turn it round, you'll see I've also put one in the back, so it's in the hole of the actual vase and shooting up the back that way. Not only does that cover the hole, but it gives me a chance to put something into the back of it. And then we fill up those tubes with water. Water in, mechanic sound, diagonal line. Now let's emphasise the line by adding the plant material, and the first one is this beautiful piece of foxtail fern. Everything is going to be on the diagonal, and we're going to put another one in this side here. Immediately it starts covering up the test tubes above it, and then one right at the base down here. Emphasises the line and brings it out again. And then I have these most beautiful roses just picked from the garden. The bugs have been on these leaves, so we'll take them off. And the smell is sensational. And they also emphasise the line into its own little test tube there. And I have another one which is, if you take off these thorns, which are vicious, it will go into those little tubes again. Now I'm doing this quite random. I want them to be emphasising that line but not looking as if it's a pattern. Stunning. Brown vase, brown wood, orange is in the brown family, so that is why it's all working so beautifully. And then the dahlias. The dahlias in virtually the same colour but adding a different form. Put one in the top, down a little bit. If need be, I will wire that into a position so that it is holding onto that diagonal line. I don't want it flopping. Just the tiniest bit of wire around its stem, around the stick. 1, 2, 3, and cut off. Gerbers would be beautiful for this design as well, and of course the same thing you can do with gerbers. It's loosely wired there, but it keeps that line going. Another one. Anything that's going to go into water, take the leaf off. Look at that. Not radiating from the centre, but a true diagonal sweeping from one way right down to the other. And then we have these lovely white roses just for a change of colour. And they've got floppy heads. Oh, but they do smell good, so they right up the top here. Far down as I can get it. And that also will be wired in place. Advantage of having all these stems. You'll also notice that the original wiring I did to hold all these things together has also almost disappeared, because the stars of the show now are the flowers. And I could have kept adding more and more flowers, but I just like that line. That is a diagonal line, a true diagonal line where everything is sweeping your eye upwards. Beautiful with the flowers. The smell, is divine. Have a go with this one. I'm sure you like this one. Freeform. It mightn't be a word you've heard of, but I guarantee you've seen it every time you've been into an exhibition, because freeform, when it's talking about line direction, means there is none at all, or no specific. It's almost like the bent one, where it's all going in all directions, but the bent line is definitely bent, whereas this freeform means do what you want to do. Just don't make a line direction with it. That doesn't mean it's a free-for-all, because you still have to use the other design elements and principles. And so I have gone with unity of plant material. If you have a look through the list here, they are all blue, greens and whites, so that I will get a contrast of all these different textures and forms, but the unity is because they're all in the same colour palette. If you have a look at the dish, you'd say, oh, it's going to be a circular line direction. Now, to be a circular line direction, I would have to lay everything around like this. Then it would have a circular line. All it's really going to have is a circular shape, which isn't the same as a circular line. And this 1950s, I think, these sort of ring shapes. Shape can be anything. I'm just going to show you how to create a design that has no line whatsoever in it. Something you see in almost every modern bouquet. So it should be an easy one. Add some water, no floral foam, yay! And starting with the lavender. And it's quite difficult, because you really do want to do that with it. The lavender I'm using as see, I had to dramatically go that way. The lavender I am using to fill up the space, so then I can then pass things through it. It's my filler. Just put into here, and it will help everything else stand up. Try not to create a pattern. The other purpose lavender also fulfills, of course, has the most glorious smell. So by basing up with lavender, everything else I put in will hold in place. Of course, if you prefer to use floral foam, do so. If you want a square shape, do so. But the thing is, trying not to create a line of any sort. Harder done than said. Smell is divine. Interrupted praying mantis laying its eggs while I was cutting this lavender. Wasn't very happy with me. I had to creep away. Leave it a little piece of lavender it wanted for its house, or its birthing clinic. So already I've abandoned that circular or swishing around look, but I still have got that circular shape, which I'm going to try and avoid at all costs very shortly. Oh wow, the smell. If you can grow lavender in a bucket in your garden, encourage your next door neighbour. It is stunning to put into anything.
Even I can smell it.
Just divine. Alright, so there it is. Now we can start adding pieces. This is a lamb's ear. I've kept it all on its plant if I could there. Putting it any way I feel like it. Just to confuse the issue, have something leaning that way and some leaning that way. Freeform. However you want it to be. And listen, not often used in flower arranging, but it's very, very good in water. It lasts for ages, and of course it adds a really nice texture. Sort of a garden, a cottage garden texture. Some up, some down. These sort of things work if you go. If it works when you were picking it and it looked really pretty in your hand, it's going to look really, really pretty when you put it into something. So it's getting full. Quite wild here with the lengths of them, letting some of them hang over. No specific direction, so some can go in, some can go out. Hope I've given it enough water. Let's add a bit more. Right, now this is the seeds from one of our vegetables, which is called lamb's quarter. Extremely nutritious vegetable, but it also can be known as fat hen, a weed that grows in most places around the world. If you recognise it, you'll find it in vacant lots everywhere. Look at the beautiful texture on it, but besides that, the leaves are incredibly nutritious, those tiny little leaves that come on. Didn't know you had a cooking lesson, did you? Alright, so it's sort of a little shambolic of naturalness. No direction. Fluffy cottage gardeny. So now we're going to add some larger pieces with these beautiful Japanese anemones. And of course, more of my beautiful roses, short stemmed, put anywhere, not grouped, just placed. It's a pretty quick design, no line direction whatsoever, everything in water. Using other design principles rather than the design principle of line. Freeform. Which means I can have some of them sticking out this way. And a couple of white zinnias. Together so they have more wow. And we can't not have these beautiful little buds. Those are the buds of this anemone. Aren't they beautiful? And as quick as that, you have an arrangement with absolutely no line direction whatever, going every which way. Has created a cottage gardeny look and is very similar to what the modern bouquets are at the moment, where it's all these flowers all mushed up and put together, and the girls call it a natural look. I personally love it. I think it's gorgeous. When there is no line, freeform. Asymmetrical designs, another one you're probably very familiar with because I've done it a couple of times, I know, so you must have as well, where it is an English style, high and a long with flowers in the middle. It's actually a radial design, that one, a radial line, I should be more specific, because everything is radiating from the centre of that L shape. So to do an asymmetrical line that isn't radial takes a little bit of thinking about. So I have got some beautiful lichen coloured wood that came off our neighbour's apple tree. It's our firewood for next year. The question was how to make an asymmetrical line that wasn't radial. So I've decided to stack the wood in this lovely big Ikebana container that way. Immediately I've established the two parts of an asymmetrical line coming across this way but also going that way. Asymmetrical means not symmetrical, not the same in two directions. Well, that is definitely not going to be the same in two directions. It is very heavy. Because this lichen is, in my opinion, so beautiful, I didn't want to cover it up with all sorts of things, but I do want to get a very strong two-directional line. So I've picked these beautiful, beautiful foliage. It is a curly version of Ligularia. They don't last at all well in floral foam, so the necessity is to have it in water. But they go with the not only the form of the lichen, but also that blue-green again. So I'm going to use these to emphasise the line going in both directions, making sure that they're squashed up into that wood so they're going to get to the water. I purposely cut them with very, very long stems on them so that they will shoot out that way, and then this is the front so that they will shoot out in this direction, being the end of my diagonal line. And a third one along here. You can hold these leaves in with glue, but if you find their natural balance, they will just sit there. And so we'll give them some water. Just two little zinnias. I'm going to put one along this way. And the second one along this way. Along. So you're definitely getting that asymmetrical feel. Neither side exactly the same as the others. Unity because they've got the same things in them but they're both going in different directions. Not radial because the plant material is all coming from different points. So this is a very modern asymmetrical design that isn't rooted in the history of those English classic ones that we are all so familiar with. And to finish it off, the very, very first of the little camellias, I'm going to leave the leaves on and I'm going to pop those in also cut fairly short so that we have that line through here. And one if people are viewing it from this side. So there it is coming out that way. And I'll do the same on this one. Not the same, it's not symmetrical, similar. Similar. Laying it in the water. Very much a coffee table design, viewed from all sides. Pretty simple. And yet so different. Done without floral foam in an ikebana style. Ikebana, you just put things, gently place them where they want to go. And that's it. An asymmetrical design that is not radial, that is very modern, going in two different directions. Line, line. Simple, quick, using flowers from the Floral Design magazine Garden and foliage. Just to prove it can be done. I like it. I like it a lot. So enjoy all these lovely different line styles. I know some of them are challenging, but they are really well worth trying.